Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. I'm Steve Wicks, and I'm honored to serve as your president this year. And please silence your electronic devices. This day in history. On this day in 1996, Microsoft and NBC launched a brand new news television channel, MSNBC. Our reflection, Joey Harder will present her reflection about her year as president on Zoom today.
Okay, can you all hear me? I hope so. Well, hi everyone. It's my pleasure to do the presidential reflection. And I was president of our club in 2014, 2015. And if any of you have ever wondered, when is it that Is It Fun got added to our four-way test, well, that would be my year. I had attended the International Convention, Rotary International Convention, as an incoming president in June, along with Jim Bright and a few other Rotarians from Bloomington. And I got so inspired and so energized by attending the international convention that I came back, and that was one of my trademarks. Was one of the goals that I had for the year that I was president was to not only focus on fun or inject more fun, but focus in large part on our connections to each other, knowing each other as people, in addition to being the Rotarian, the family of Rotarians that we were. So I had a fantastic time in Sydney. And Jim Bright, because I know you're in the room somewhere, if you want to share the pin story at a later date with anyone, because there's some tremendous stories that Jim and I shared during our time in Australia. But as I said, one of the goals that I had during my presidential year was to inject fun and fellowship. And it happens to have been the year that we created what is now called our Fellowship, Family, and Fun Committee. It got its roots then. And we had several happy hours with the other two Bloomington clubs that year. So really a focus on that. During my year as president, our beloved Michael Shermis led 19 of us through a visioning retreat in order to update our club strategic plan, 3-year plan. And that is where our club vision statement got its original roots, which, to remind you of what that is, the Bloomington Rotary Club envisions a diverse and engaged community of leaders whose fellowship and service have a significant positive impact both locally and globally. As I went down memory lane thinking about 10 years ago and the service projects that we were engaged in during my year, those included Race for Literacy, the Hoosier Half Marathon, the delivery and distribution of election equipment. Those of you in the room remember that. We had a Rotary Ivy Tech Vocational Career Discovery Fair at Ivy Tech during my year. We had a district grant that enabled us to provide $3,000 to our then International Service Committee's project in Kinshasa, where we were able to install library cabinets in the schools, just to name a few. So, and then of course, 2014 was also when our three local club, or all of us, came together for the first Rotary Toast. And of course, this year we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Toast. So that's quite an accomplishment. I think that's it, although I would be remiss if I didn't quickly mention that another thing that I did when I became president as a means of embodying and exemplifying energy and fun and all that, I wrote and I performed the Joy of Rotary rap song during my induction. Yes, I really did. I think Gene Emery recorded it. It exists somewhere. You get none of that today, maybe some other time. It was great to be president of our club. It was a huge honor. So, thanks.
Thank you, Joyce. I am not surprised at all that you're associated with fun and Rotary. And here 10 years later, Joy is still co-chairing our Youth Services Committee, and she's still active at the district level with RILA. So thank you, Joyce. Dave Meyer will introduce our guests today.
Welcome, guests. I will read your name and your sponsor today and ask you if you would stand so that we can recognize you. Margie Walls is our speaker today, and she. Oh. Okay, says Margie Walls. Anyway, Margie, welcome. You're a guest of the speaker. Thank you. Now I have it straight. Thank you. Carolyn Conway is a guest of, also a guest of the speaker. Carolyn Calloway. Thank you. Nelda Colgazer is also a guest of the speaker. I'm going to read more slowly now and hope for the best. Peyton Flynn is a guest of Lori Garrity. Linda Heath is a guest of the speaker. Juliet Istra Badi is a guest of the speaker. Nay Tut is a guest of Jim Bright. And I think this is JT Waring. Thank you, is a guest of Jim Bright. Welcome. Welcome to all of you. If any of you would like to know more about Rotary, please look to your left or your right, and anyone at your table that is a Rotarian will be certainly glad to help you learn more.
Joy, do we have any guests online?
Yes, we do, Steve. But first, quickly, a special shout out to our speaker today, Margaret Clements. Hi. And we got to hear, those of us on Zoom got to hear what Megan Gearhart is up to. And she recently graduated. Yay for Megan. She's in the Czech Republic. She's looking for a job globally. Yay, Megan.
Okay, birthdays. We have 5 birthdays today. Amy Garst on the 17th. Jerona Rotich also on the 17th. One of our longest serving members, Fred Dunn, on the 20th. Charlie Osborne on the 21st. And Ashley Wesley on the 21st. No Rotary anniversaries this week. Have a bunch of announcements. First of all, for those of you who want to provide help for Texas residents devastated by flooding, Rotary offers multiple ways to do so. I have these listed in my meeting notes. Hopefully they'll be in roundabout. But certainly if you want to help through Rotary, you'll have a number of different options to do so. Program Committee and the Community Services Committee are meeting after this meeting. Don't forget to buy your tickets for the Rotary Toast on Friday, November 7th. Go to rotarytoast.com for your tickets. Club holiday party, save the date, December 11th at the Bloomington Country Club. Marilyn Wood still needs roundabout reporters, including some for the month of August. She will be on vacation part of the month. We really want to get that covered before she leaves. And now we have Michelle Cohen with a Hoosier Hills announcement.
Thank you. I'm asking for volunteers for the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. We've got a day of service on Friday, July 25th. We've got 2 shifts, morning 9:30 to 11:30 and afternoon 12:30 to 2:30. And we need about 13 more volunteers total. So we have a Sign Up Genius link. I also have old school pen and paper here and I can help you sign up. So just come see me. The things we're going to be doing are probably sorting groceries. It's fun. We'll work alongside Duke Energy volunteers, and kids 10 and up with an adult caregiver are also allowed. So come see me, sign up, come have fun.
Thanks, Michelle. So we describe these weekly meetings as celebrations of service, and this week we definitely have a lot to celebrate. Thanks to really all the volunteers, Teachers Warehouse supply drive this past weekend was a big success. I had hoped by now to have a count of everything that was donated, but they're still counting. So that's a really good problem to have. So I'd like to show a few pictures and we'll celebrate a little bit. I do feel good that I've reached the point in my presidency that Tyler has entrusted me with the clicker. So we'll see if I'm worthy. But we'll see some Rotarians in action. All right. What's that? Okay, here we go. We have James Wolfe and Liz Feidel at work. Here we have Dakir Abdullah and Joy Harder. Look at those smiles. I really love the picture, except for the Alabama Crimson Tide hat. Okay, we have here, I think I might have skipped one. Did I? Okay, no. All right. So you'll notice something interesting about this one. So on the left, we have Michelle Cohen, Sarah Laughlin, and Mike Wade. And though on the right, we have Amina and Sarah Laughlin. So Sarah working double shifts. So good for Sarah. Here we have Bill Perkins and Mike Baker. Michael Shermis. Whitney Cordoba. She was with Art Omek, but Art had left just before I took this picture. Next one, we had Sylvia Turchin, who is a Teachers Warehouse volunteer with our John Hobson. And Whitney Cordoba, you see on the left. And then we work our way to Kroger South. And we have Marty Donnelly from the North Club. Charlotte's there. We have Judy Witt and Jim Bright. And then earlier in the day, Ann Bright and Bloomington North Rotarian Leah Hayes. And Jim Cryway at work on the left early in the day. And I want to linger on this picture on the right because I first saw it, and the first thing I thought of is a young woman being approached by an older man. Is he offering her candy to get in his van? Oh my gosh. Well, then look at the next picture. And look at the smile on her face. So Art Omek. Yes. Art, I don't think there was any candy involved. I think you made a friend. So well done. Can I ask all the people who volunteered for Teachers Warehouse this weekend, either stand up or raise your hand? Well done. Okay, now we're going to roll into this week's Mystery Rotarian. First clue, remember, just put up your hand if you know the answer. Don't shout it out. Online, put up your electronic hand. So this Rotarian was a two-term president of the Bloomington Thrift Shop and won a 2020 City of Bloomington Volunteer Network Be More Award. Raise your hand if you know who it is. Okay. Second clue. This Rotarian is an active member of the Bloomington Refugee Support Network and has been a key member in our club's local refugee efforts. Okay. Third clue. This Rotarian is one of a handful of club members whose spouses are also members of the club. Okay. And our winner this week, our mystery Rotarian, is Cindy Neidhart. There's a Cindy is standing next to Lady Liberty. This is a picture that I saw on Facebook that was taken at this year's 4th of July parade. And Cindy remains an active member of Psi Iota Xi, which is a local sorority that owns and operates the Bloomington Thrift Shop. Thanks to shop earnings, they donated almost $50,000 to local charities in 2025. So they really make a big impact. Cindy and her husband, Dave Meyer, sitting next to her, active members of the club. Cindy is a retired IU admissions counselor. And in September, Cindy will celebrate her 5-year anniversary as a member of the Bloomington Rotary Club. And I think we're really lucky to have her. So thank you, Cindy. And in terms of people in the room, I noticed Dave Meyer was the first to put up his hand. But I don't think that should be allowed. Lynn, I think you were first, so I'll give you credit. Joy, did anyone have it online?
Bill did. Bill Perkins, I think, was new on the second clue.
Okay, good job, Lynn and Bill Perkins. And now let's roll into Happy Dollars. While we're starting, Joy, do you have anyone online?
At the very moment, no. I'll let you know.
Happy because it's not every July that the Cubs rolled into the All-Star break in first place. Oh!
Yeah, $10. I'm very happy because on Saturday when we were at Kroger's, everybody was friendly, everybody was welcoming. There was no grumping at all. I've been on that tour before, and people say, no, I don't want to hear it. Nothing of that. This was a really wonderful, positive community effort on Saturday. So we should be happy that at least this community is willing to be happy in this terrible time.
We have time for 2 more.
I am happy to be the co-chair of the Community Service Committee, along with Michelle Cohen. You will note that it takes 2 people in order to fill in for the many years that Sarah Laughlin served as the primary chair of that committee. And so it is great to have that position and to do that work. Thank you.
Last one.
Hello, everyone. I say we take a vote and allow 3 more. No, I'm just, thank you all. Thursday, and I hope many of you already know this, but Congressman John Lewis, that will be the anniversary of his passing. And on Thursday, there's going to be a rally downtown. It's called People Have the Power Rally. And we're going to emphasize his saying of causing good trouble. So obviously, we believe in nonviolent, and there's many organizations that would do this. And we think protest is one of the greatest forms of democracy. And 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and hopefully we'll see many of you there. Thank you. Oh, $5 for happy dollars.
Thank you all. We have, in my role as club president, I'm learning that an hour goes by quickly. I've been trying to carve out time each week to talk about Rotary International. And this week, we'll shift it a little bit, maintain an international perspective, but we'll hear from sixth generation Bloomington native JT Waring. JT has spoken to our club several times regarding safe water systems in Myanmar. Our club participated in one of his projects roughly 10 years ago. JT is a 50-year Rotarian. He's a member of the Los Angeles Rotary Club, recipient of multiple Rotary Awards, including its highest honor, the Service Above Self Award. JT, welcome back to Bloomington.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be back in my annual pilgrimage to my home village of Bloomington. And it literally was, I'm going to date myself, but that's all right. I couldn't be a 50-year Rotarian if I joined when I was 3. So when I was growing up in the late 1940s, the population of Bloomington was about 14,000. It's a little larger than that today. Let me be brief in my 5 minutes of fame, which is now down to 4:30. We had the presumption, being from Los Angeles, the land of wild dreams, of expanding and rebranding the project, which most of you know, and which indeed you have supported strongly in prior years, from the Rotary Myanmar Water Management Systems Project now to the Rotary Southeast Asia Water Management Systems Project. Now, what does that mean? I'll define the project in a moment, but let me just say briefly that we have added the Philippines, Thailand, and Cambodia to the purview of the project. And I have been kind of like the cat on the hot tin roof, running between all 4 of those countries the last, I would say, year, almost 2 years. I'm just back about 8 weeks ago from the Springs journey. I was there last fall and winter also, and we'll be back in October. Now, what do we do? Just as a reminder to the newer members of this awesome club, we innovated not doing water projects. Lots of people and lots of good Rotarians do water projects, but what we innovated was a particularly matrix project that does long-lasting, low unit cost water system that will serve a large population. Our basic design, which I personally commissioned a Myanmar civil engineer to design for us in 2005, involves a well process to dig down to where the water may come up from, and that can be, in that country alone of Myanmar, can be as deep as 65 feet or as deep as 700 feet, depending on where we happen to have to be. And that brings it up to the surface, pumps it laterally to a ground tank of 1,500 gallons where the water is allowed to desediment. The water there, like here in Bloomington, is very heavy with lots of other elements. So we gravity settle that, then we pump it up to a 22-foot high derrick, which has 2 600-gallon tanks on the top. And there, the water can be gravity fed, no more power necessary, to the takeoff points for cooking and drinking, washing and laundering, and in many cases at the village level to the watering or irrigation of sustenance crops. Now, we have, with the funding assistance of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as the Mormons, we are now adding a state-of-the-art reverse osmosis electromechanical water filtration system. Now, why do we want to do that? Because this takes all of the arsenic, which is prevalent in the water in that part of the world, out of the water, and makes it safe even for small children. Nobody dies. Not only does nobody die, nobody gets sick from the water that comes out of one of these systems. So that's basically what we're doing. Our system is designed to last a minimum of 30 years and actually can go a lot longer than that in many cases. And the big deal here is that we can expand from as low as a population of 60 for an orphanage to 2,000 for a town or village, and we've done that. So that's what we're about, and I'll be back at it very soon. Thank you all.
Thank you, JT. Just another example of the wonderful things that Rotarians are doing all over the world. They ran into some roadblocks in Burma and so, Myanmar. And as a result, they adjusted and came up with a new approach and off they go again. Lynn Schwartzberg will introduce our speaker.
Well, what a fun meeting. Joy, we're trying to live up to your legacy. I am thrilled to introduce Margaret Clements. Margaret wears many hats, including being on the Monroe County Plan Commission, the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals, and she's also the founder and director of the Center for Knowledge Diffusion, which is a research center. The one that interests me the most is she's the president of the Bloomington Garden Club. As a garden walker for as many years as I can remember, I love the Garden Club, but I don't really know much about it. So Margaret has been a member for about 6 years, and you've been introduced today to a handful of members who have long histories with the Garden Club. Margaret is originally from South Bend and did graduate from IU with her PhD. When I asked her what turned her, as she calls, into a gardening nerd, she said it was the seed packets that used to be handed out at the filling station after you got your gas when Johnson was president and Lady Bird Johnson had her Make America Beautiful campaign. And I think many of us remember that. And I thought that was kind of amazing. So it is my pleasure to introduce Margaret Clement, a dear friend and an amazing gardener.
I just want to thank you all for inviting me here and for your warm welcome, and also for your warm welcome to all of my fellow Garden Club members. I share the presidency with Margie Walls, and we have been working together on every aspect of our duties of the Garden Club as its presidents. And sitting at the table, at two tables, are several distinguished people who have helped to bring the Summer Garden Walk to fruition last year, and they've committed to do it again this year. And I'm also having the privilege of observing them in action because Margie and I will do it the following year in 2027. And Linda Heath and Paula Swander, who wasn't able to make it today, are mentoring us through this process because there's a lot of magic that happens behind the scenes in bringing something of this scope and magnitude and importance and joy to our community. And we love thinking about the Garden Walk as kind of an original pop-up that the old ladies in Bloomington were cool enough to do way back when it started in about 1990. But the Summer Garden Walk is just one aspect of our garden club. And in preparing for this talk, I have learned so much about what our garden club has done historically and how it collaborated with other garden clubs around our community and around the state and around our region, that I really am excited to share with you some of the, the results of what I would describe as the invisible work of women. You know, in researching this, the ladies who founded our club, who are honored every year in our Garden Club book, are identified by their husbands' names. Mr. Paul Weatherwax, Mrs. Hufford, Mrs. Emmy Hufford, and other names that were, you know, resplendent with their husbands' names, but not their maiden names or their first names. So even finding the obituary for these women who founded our club and did so much for our community through the Garden Club and through their service on hospital organizations, it was difficult to find who they were, and their obituaries usually were not very expansive or extensive. So with that being said, I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about 4 of my favorite topics of discussion: gardening, daffodils, the Bloomington Garden Club, and also Moya Andrews, who is one of our most influential members of the last several decades. So thank you for having us here today. I want to share with you at first a little bit about the history of the American Garden Club movement, the origins and growth of the Garden Club movement. So like the Rotary Club, which was founded in Chicago, I understand, in 1905, the Garden Club movement began in 1891. And by 1913, it had turned into a national organizational movement. And by 1929, the National Garden Clubs of America was formed in St. Louis, Missouri. And the National Garden Clubs of America soon became the largest nonprofit gardening organization in the world. And so one might ask, why did service clubs and garden clubs gain so much traction in the early part of the 20th century? And we must remember to place those clubs in the proper context of our history. That World War I was fought between 1914 and 1918, that the Spanish flu pandemic took 675,000 or more US lives between 1918 and 1919. The Great Depression spanned the years 1929 to 1939, and the New Deal spawned the Public Works Administration between July 1933 and March 1939, and they funded and administered the construction of more than 34,000 projects, including schools, hospitals, bridges, and roads. And right around that time, 1936 to 1938, is when our club originated. It originated initially as study groups of women who would gather in the homes of other community women, and they enlisted the help of someone from the Purdue Extension Office who came down and taught them how to create gardens, how to create victory gardens, how to sustain themselves, how to promote community activity, and how to engage children in their gardening efforts. And Bloomington was a hotbed of activity with these regards. There were 2 garden clubs, I found out, that formed in 1938. The study clubs began in 1936, and in 1938, there was the Friendship Garden Club, which I knew nothing about, and the Bloomington Garden Club, which was formed in 1938. They intentionally kept the groups small for intimacy and interaction and the ability to meet in each other's living rooms. And from that time period, they grew, and we're still at it. I don't know if the Friendship Garden Club still exists, but I know it was active into the 1980s, which is really remarkable. And some of the women interacted with both clubs. So that was a really interesting fact for me to know. And so the main goals and impacts of garden clubs formed at this time were to promote gardening and horticultural education, encourage conservation and natural resource preservation, support civic improvement and beautification, and foster youth education and engagement with nature. So typical project impacts were public gardens, courthouse lawns, roadside beautification programs, Blue Star Highway programs to honor those who were killed in the war, wildflower preservation programs, and the establishment of the National Park System. They also spearheaded the anti-billboard campaign and the urban green space preservation initiatives and ecological awareness programs. So ultimately, garden clubs have given women leadership opportunities that they otherwise would not have, and they did a lot. And they tried to influence city code, they tried to influence legislative efforts, and they were successful in a lot of these regards. So we have to really look to our foremothers, who by and large are invisible, and try to understand who they were, what they did, and why did they do it. So here in Bloomington, I'm going to forward this here. There were many early local garden clubs. back through the 50s, I think in about 1958, there were, I think, over 10 notable garden clubs. You know, and the names are listed here: the Bloomington Garden Club, the Friendship Garden Club, the Countryside Garden Club that was over there by Clear Creek down by the Country Club, the Grandview Garden Club that was formed by Mrs. Bunger, the Vernal Pike Garden Club, which received visitors from our Bloomington Garden Club and other clubs, the Ellettsville Garden Club, the Diggin' Dozen Garden Club, the Arbutus Garden Club, the Green Thumb Garden Club, and the Martinsville Garden Club. And of course, Helen Link, who has a very famous daffodil collection at the Link Observatory, was active in the Martinsville Garden Club. And our local leaders were also, it turns out, interested in daffodils, you know, which I found to be very interesting. I'm a member of the Indiana Daffodil Society, and ladies in our town have been using daffodils as a way to express themselves in many profound ways over the decades. I have learned just recently in preparing for this talk by Sarah Kinney, who is a well-known nurse and a well-known just personality in our community, that and she is a leader in the Indiana Daffodil Society, that when migrants would come to the United States and they would leave their homeland, frequently their parents and their neighbors would put a daffodil bulb in their pocket. And these daffodils symbolize memory, perseverance, resilience, beauty, and they also, after World War II, or during World War II, symbolized the yellow star that was used to mark Jewish people with the yellow star. So they became a symbol that was embraced in Bloomington. Before Libby Fry and Helen Link really were at it with their daffodil hybridizing, I understand that Bloomington would come alive with daffodils. Like ladies from all over town, would collect daffodils and put them in vases and show them off in every store window up and down Kirkwood, Walnut, and College Avenue. Later, they were just ablaze with color, you know, and at the time, things were rather drab because of the war, but these ladies imbued all of our community assets with these yellow, joyful flowers, which I almost can't wait for winter because I can't wait for the daffodils to come up again, you know? So I want to review with you some of these leading ladies. Well, first, let's see, the charter members of the Bloomington Garden Club. These ladies were hard to track down because, you know, they were noted mostly by their husbands. Their obituaries didn't contain much information about them. And so they were pretty much described by the work that their husbands did. And their husbands, being married to intelligent women, were quite something themselves. Mrs. Paul Weatherwax, Professor Paul Weatherwax was an internationally renowned botanist. In addition to his long career at IU, he taught in Thailand. He traveled extensively to Latin America and was a botanical illustrator who researched the morphology of grasses and Indian corn. He became a pretty well-known figure at the USDA. And then I noticed that I'm running out of time, so I better speed up here, you know. But Mrs. George W. Starr, George Starr was a researcher associated with the founding of the Bureau of Business Research here at Indiana University. Mrs. Grace Mitchum, she was a widow, but her daughter was Mrs. Dillon Geiger, who is from a famous physician's family here in town. And if you're driving up Fee Lane, you can see the Geiger house, and they lived there. But she was Mrs. Grace Mitchum's daughter, and they collaborated so much in the garden work. And they had a big, huge lawn of daffodils that they also liked to present to other community members for propagation. And then Mrs. R.B. Stoll. Mr. Stoll was a vice president and cashier at First National Bank. And I think it's notable that Herman B. Wells worked from 1924 to 26 as an assistant bank cashier at First National Bank. And they lived close to each other when he was going through school. So I think that that's really important to note. And Mrs. Emmy Hufford and Mrs. Dylan Geiger. They were all people who founded our garden club. They interacted with the other garden clubs. They traveled to Martinsville to collect specimens. They propagated clippings. The Friendship Garden Club, especially, one of the purposes was to propagate plants and share them with other people. Our garden club was more involved with children's education programs, just as a distinction between the two with such similar names, you know. Okay, I already talked about that, so I'm making up time here. So the Bloomington Garden Club has as its mission the goal to stimulate the knowledge and love of gardening, to aid in the protection of native trees, plants, and birds, and to encourage civic planting and beautification. And through our garden walk, we raise money to fund children's gardening education programs and civic planting and beautification. So I don't know how many people in the room know of Barbara Shaluka. Yes. I mean, I never had the privilege or the pleasure of meeting her, but this woman must have been a dynamo. When just to read about everything that she did, to see all of the clippings in the newspaper, she was all over the place. She had Herman B. Wells showing up to the award ceremony for little kids. She created a program for children that was copied around the world. She was a dynamo. And she never really had, I think, the security of position that men enjoy, but she had a huge impact. I'm told by people, other women in our community, that when they would travel internationally, people would ask, "Do you know Barbara Shaluka?" And she did this by creating a system of children's education that involved the parents, it involved the university, it involved the Parks Department, it involved other community leaders, the school corporation. She got buses driving children to her program, brimming with children just wanting to dig in the dirt. And her program was 3 years long, and the children, almost all of them received an award at the end of the program. And the program started in March and ended in November, and it culminated with an award ceremony. She integrated university students into the program, so they were her assistants, and they went on to replicate her program around the world and around the country. So she was just a real dynamo. She had at her 25th year anniversary at Indiana University, it was estimated that more than 10,000 students had worked with her. More than 800 interns had worked with her. And in 1973, although she had begun working at Hilltop in 1948, building the program with the help of our garden club, she embarked on a campaign to build a nature center for $250,000. And that is the nature center you see at Hilltop today. And that leads me to Libby Fry. How many in the room know Libby Fry? Yes, I know you do, Charlotte. I know you do, because she was also active in environmental causes, and she was active in the anti-incineration of PCB campaigns, and she sued the federal government. And at the time of her death, there was an ongoing lawsuit about whether or not the EPA had done enough to remediate the Superfund sites we had here for the safety of the public. And it was her contention that they had not. She did not ultimately win in that case, and probably that had something to do with her untimely death. But Dr. Libby Fry, all of these women had doctorates. Their husbands were also had doctorates, but I think IU had an anti-nepotism policy at the time, and so the women made themselves meaningful in other ways. So Libby Fry went about hybridizing daffodils. I think she created 300 varieties of daffodils. And I guess she was pretty persnickety about it, because I'm hearing from Sarah Kinney and also Judy Grandboys that they had to watch her set up a flower show for 3 years before Libby Fry would let them touch a flower and put it in a vase, you know? Because she knew what she was doing. You know, I attended one of these events last year. And I was like, whew, I don't know what I'm looking at, you know? They have them colored and categorized by petal, corona, petal type, the way it, I don't know, but I wouldn't be qualified maybe for 5 to 10 years to set up at a show like this and classify them. But she, of course, had won many, many, many awards. So I don't know if I probably shouldn't take the time to read all those. You just have to know that she was appreciated around the country and around the region and around different disciplines for her impact. She was an impactful person, and I just can't believe everything that she accomplished, and I'm in awe of it. Now, lastly, you have to give me time, Steve. Okay. Dr. Moya Andrews, who passed away this last year, she was a legendary person in our Bloomington Garden Club. She did so much to cultivate our garden club, to create something special, to continue the work of Libby Fry and Dr. Shaluka in terms of children's gardening education programs. And she's the one who started the summer garden walk. That summer garden walk now is, well, it depends on how you count it. It's 35 years strong. We had the 1 year off because of the pandemic. And so I think technically, Juliet and Carolyn, when is the 35th? This last year or the next year? Both. Okay, we have both. So that's pretty, that's a triumph. That's a triumph to create something of that long-standing magnitude with the goal of creating meaningful children's gardening education programs. And so she was a personal friend. Whenever I would call her on the phone, you know, she didn't have a cell phone. She would pick up her rotary phone if she wasn't on another call, but she would always call right back after she was off the last call. She's, Margaret, have you been in your garden today? You know, and that was her first question. And it was because that's how prominent gardening was and important it was in her life. And that joy of gardening, that enthusiasm for gardening is what's, I think we all caught. We caught the bug. You know, we caught the bug, and I just am so thankful for her. And she was notable in other ways that are too great to recount. She authored books on perennials and on shrubs, and she syndicated the podcast Focus on Flowers, which I think is a dream podcast. I hear her voice in the morning and on Wednesday afternoons, and it's the perfect length. It's 3 minutes and you learn something new about plants somewhere in the world. I just love to hear that show. She also was a PhD, and she worked she was a noted academic. She was invited for keynote lectures around the world in speech and hearing. And finally, she was one of the first most prominent administrators at Indiana University. She became Dean of Faculties and Vice President for her research. And she just was just a powerhouse in her own right. So all of these women, they didn't make the most money. They aren't really regaled throughout our community newspapers, but they made a huge impact. They gave our community soul. And I'm looking in the room here and I see the various people who have given our community's soul as well. Joyce Poling, Charlotte Zitlow, Ruth Boschkoff, you know, Sandy Keller. You all are amazing women who really humble me in all of your good works, your good deeds. And I can't thank you enough for continuing forward with all the good work you do. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation, but I have to ask you this question.
Yes.
Malcolm Webb featured the garden walk at his home the other year. Do we have more men involved than before?
Our garden club is, by our bylaws, is a women's club. And it is not, it would take a lot to change those bylaws. And frankly, I think, you know, there's a space for women to come together. We appreciate Malcolm Webb's garden, and we also appreciate the work of men. But maybe after reading all this, we need to focus on ourselves a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know, but yes.
Oh, great, Margaret. Wonderful. I knew you were good. Daffodils. I decided a few years ago I would be the daffodil lady in our neighborhood, and I was, except I realized daffodils are fabulous for a few weeks, and then they've taken over all the space that you could use for other things.
Yes.
What to do?
Oh, okay. So this is a perfect time of year. Not by now, the green leaves have fed the bulb, and you can grab those brown leaves and move them and remove them. But you need to leave the green leaves there in order to feed and give nutrients to the bulb. I made the mistake of putting some of my bulbs toward the front of my border. And now that it's July, I'm going to dig those up and plant them toward the back so I don't notice the leaves as much when they turn, because they come up when nothing else is blooming or leafed out. So, sure. Thank you.
Do you accept donations from the public of things like tubers and what do you call rhizomes, whatever, like iris and things like that when they're split up?
We do have a plant exchange. We do have that. And if you have rhizomes and anything like that, I'm interested. And I know my other garden club members are interested too. So the answer is yes. Call me and we'll figure out how to. Oh. And there is a plant exchange organization that you can join for something like $10, and you pay it once in your lifetime, and you bring plants and you get plants. I don't know myself. Do you ladies know of anybody who would, except my brother Ed, who's my Irish twin, he looks on Craigslist and he looks on Nextdoor, and every now and then he sees a listing like, if you want rose bushes, come get them. And I get into his truck and I find myself in somebody's yard with a shovel. And he digs it up and he goes home and plants it. So he does that on, I feel like I'm going to be arrested. I think he's going to get me in trouble one of these days.
I just wanted to share a Moya anecdote.
Yes.
We were visiting once and my poinsettias were toward the end of their lovely winter bloom. And I said, I have tried to winter these, bring them back next year. And it's so complicated and this and that. And she looked at me and she said, you know what, Lynn, I throw mine away. Just get new ones. Don't even bother with this. And I thought, Moya.
Yes. And do you know what Moya would do too? I mean, we're in the Georgian room today, but when I've been with Rotary before, we were in the frangipani room, and she grew frangipani. She grew and she overwintered it in her basement, and she would show up at my house with the little chalice with the frangipani floating on top. And it was the first time I'd seen one. So it was always delightful to have Moya visit. So I'm sorry to take the time of a questioner. So.
I'll share my Moya story is that she's the first person I ever went to the garden club when she held it at her house. Actually, that was my first one. And I've known her since the mid 90s when amazingly, I just kind of lost my voice for 6 months and she helped get it back. So she was a wonderful person.
Oh, that's lovely. Lovely.
Any questions online?
Yeah.
Viner?
There are not.
Okay.
Well, technically, this isn't a question, but you answered a question I was going to ask. So I'm going to take just a minute and thank you for mentioning Dr. Shaluka. I remember her from my first gardening experience when I was very young, must have been back in the 1950s. And one of the things I remember most is that we were growing broccoli and we would go away for a week. I remember leaving and looking down in the center of that broccoli plant and not seeing anything that looked edible, and came back the next week and there was a beautiful head of broccoli there. And that just really struck with me that broccoli is a super plant.
That's great. She would deliver bags of produce to the mayor, you know, to show the results of the Hilltop program and to gain community support. They produce tons of food at Hilltop, tons of food.
Last question.
I just wanted to comment on Hilltop, which is my daughter grew up going there. She loved it so much. And now she's at Wonder Lab, and she spent all of last week with 20 kids at the Wonder Camp up at Hilltop. And those children were so ecstatic and had to show me the different things. I went up and made paper with them. And it was just wonderful to see them all have a place where they could go out and enjoy nature, where if they didn't have their own backyard, Hilltop was theirs.
Oh,
And so it was really wonderful what you started, and it's continuing to the next
oh,
generations.
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Are there? I would like to just make one public announcement, if I might. I don't know, remember if I said this. September 1st is our grant deadline. If you know of a not-for-profit that wants to involve children in their gardening education program, please contact us. Look online on our website, bloomingtongardenclub.org, so that you can find out the details of how to apply for a grant for these purposes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Margaret, thank you for the really, I mean, stuff that I didn't know anything about. Rotarians aspire to be people of action and to do things that make an impact. And so today we've learned about all these people in our community who have made a big impact and made Bloomington a beautiful place. So in honor of your presentation, a donation will be made this quarter to Off Night Productions. So we have lots of volunteers who helped. Program doesn't happen without club volunteers. Rex Hillary, Michelle Cohen, Lynn Schwartzberg, Joey Harder again via Zoom, Sarah Laughlin, Michael Shermis, Alan Barker, and then our staff, Tyler Martin Nichols, and Natalie Blaze. Meeting next week will be in the solarium, so next to Alumni Hall. We don't go there very often, so it'll be a change of pace. And our speaker will be Mike Diekoff, who will educate us about hot air balloons. So Tyler, if you can go ahead and put up the four-way test and stand if you're able. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?
The community service meeting will be on the back table. If you're in community service, back table.